Hey! 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 This is library.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Tell Me About That Book podcast. Short conversations about some of the best books on personal growth, mindset, fitness, and business topics with some of the leaders in the fitness industry. Today we're talking about Angela Duckworth's Grit. So you can go to tellmeaboutthatbook.com and there's a link there for the readitfor.me book summary of today's book, which is Grit. You just have to sign up. It's free, and you'll get a summary of really, they do either text, they do audio, and they do these cool little videos, and they're about, the videos and audio are about 12 minutes, anywhere from 12, 13, 14 minutes long. So very cool. Now, any money made with sponsorships and affiliate links for the podcast goes directly to Inner City Weightlifting, and you can find out more about them at tellmeaboutthatbook.com. So for today's show, I have on Devan McConnell, and Devan is the head sports performance coach at Mass Lowell. Before Lowell, he was at Stanford. He's also worked at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, and he's also spent some time in the past with both the Anaheim Ducks and the San Jose Sharks. Devan, thanks so much for coming on.
And thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
All right. Yeah, and I'm excited that you picked this book because just kind of the age of the guys that you're working with. You're working with elite athletes. You're working with, young men, and what we would consider a sport that is gritty. Most of the guys are gritty. And so, eventually I want to talk to you about whether or not we can kind of teach grit or we can become gritty or just kind of, because again, you're supposed to be getting the grittiest human beings in the world are hockey players. So we'll see if that's true. But tell me a little bit about Angela Duckworth's Grit.
Yeah. So Angela Duckworth is or was, I'm not exactly sure anymore, but professor at Penn, I believe. And she basically did a bunch of research on this idea that she kind of termed grit. And the book is basically about this research and about her findings. And basically what she researched, what she looked at, what she's spent her kind of career thinking about is how much does something other than talent, something other than sort of inborn talent, equate to outstanding achievement, and what are the consistent themes across many different disciplines and fields that successful people in different fields have. And she kind of came upon this idea of what again she calls grit, which is really has a lot to do with kind of work ethic and the ability to remain focused on a specific goal for a long period of time, despite ups and downs, despite adversity. And what she basically found was that people who are successful across all domains, whether that's business, whether that's sports, whether that's parenting, one of the things or one of the major things they all had in common was these similar abilities to kind of see obstacles as opportunity, to interpret adversity as a chance to develop themselves and find another way forward, and to continue to sort of progress forward despite adversity that may come about.
Yeah, and I like the way, I like that she threw passion in there too, because like she talks about this being a combination of passion and perseverance, right? Mm-hmm. Because, in order, like you had said, and like what she talked about was it's this endurance factor, right? It's this over a long period of time, and you're never going to make it unless you really truly, if you got to have that passion.
Yeah, 100%. Passion is a huge component of what she sort of, it's a big piece of what she determined was grit, or what was this idea of grit. And it's exactly that reason. It's that, the successful people are able to, again, persevere and sort of stay focused on a singular goal for a really long period of time. And it's really, really hard, if not impossible, to do that if you're not passionate about whatever it is. Because if you're not passionate about it, eventually, the setbacks that are going to occur over time are just going to be too much, and you're gonna move on to something else. And so you'll never ultimately be, extremely successful in that realm, in that domain, because you just won't stick with it. So passion becomes a really important piece of sort of the equation of what grit is and what makes people gritty, as she terms.
Yeah. And I kind of would feel like I need to throw in almost like the purpose, the meaning, having meaning. Last month I finished Man's Search for Meaning, so obviously it's still on my mind. But there's this idea, like if you look at the West Point guys, we could also say, well, what's their passion? Is their passion to get through just this, this tough week or 2 weeks or 7-week training? But no, it's a passion for meaning in their life that because they found that the guys with the best scores and some of these other things didn't owe. And, we see that with the Navy SEALs too. They're not always the biggest jocks that make it through that hell week. It's really these guys that are able to push through these things.
Yeah, it's definitely that start with why idea. If we want to talk about other books, this fits very well, I think, into that, Start with Why by Simon Sinek, by The Slight Edge, Mindset by Carol Dweck, the idea of deliberate practice. And it's having a why, it's having a purpose behind what you're doing. Because again, if you're going to talk about perseverance over a really long period of time, what it's going to be to make you successful, to get to the top level of whatever it is that you're talking about, you're going to run into obstacles. And if you don't have a foundation, if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a why, it becomes really difficult to stay on track. But if you have that purpose, if you have that why, if you have that real foundational bedrock to why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important and why you're passionate about it, that's what allows these people to ultimately kind of rise above and get through these hurdles and continue to progress over time.
Do you think that, again, I appreciate that you chose this book because of the your quote unquote clientele. You're a young athlete. You work with these hockey players at Mass Lowell, and do you feel like this is something that can be taught as well? Is there things that you feel like you can do to help them become more gritty? Or is it really just like a good talk? Is it a good, consistent, like, guys, let's keep pushing through, a good reminder of the why? I mean, talk to me about whether or not you think it can be taught and maybe some things that you feel like you're trying to do to help them become gritty.
Yeah, I do think it can be taught. I mean, I think it's something that it needs to be almost a conscious decision by the players, by a person to understand and decide, okay, this is not going to be necessarily enjoyable all the time, but I can improve at this. And Duckworth talks about this in the book, that the idea of being gritty can and absolutely can be taught and instilled in people. And one of the things that I think we really try to impress here at UMass Lowell with our team, our players, and is a big component of our culture is being gritty, is continuing to try to develop, to get 1% better every day. And so it's something that we literally talk about as a group on a very consistent basis here, whether it's with me, in the weight room or our coaching staff or whatever. But we may not, I will certainly bring up the word grit to our players. Our coaches may not, but they may talk about it in different ways. But it's something that we do think can be taught, and we try to instill in our athletes and teach them that, overcoming obstacles is what is necessary to be successful. You're going to run into obstacles, and it's how you consciously decide to approach those or to respond to those obstacles that's ultimately going to make a difference in your success, whether it be here with the hockey team or down the road, in your future life. You're going to run into obstacles, and we want to, we do everything we can to try to teach them as athletes and as young men that those are opportunities to improve, and that, you know, you're going to come across those things, and that's what's going to make a difference, whether you sort of make it or don't make it.
Absolutely good stuff. What I loved about when you get to the section about her own kids, and for example, making them pick something, and then one of the rules was like if they're going to play piano, that, you know, they had to stay with something for 2 years, or I forget exactly what the time frame was, but I just love that you know, some of those rules, as you know, you now being a parent, you know, probably have a bunch of ideas for for your kids to hopefully help them stay gritty. And by gritty, we don't only mean just like guys who are grinding it out. We just mean, you know, people that stick with things and see things through.
Yeah, no, she talks about you know, choosing your hard thing is what she talks about. And as a parent, her kids, her family, they have to choose a hard thing that they do every day. And I think one kid plays the piano as the example. And I think she talked about, you know, when she was writing the book, her hard thing was to sit down and write every day. And it could be anything. And that's one of her points, is that the individual needs to choose what it is. It can't be sort of impressed upon the person. Like, I can't tell one of my players what your hard thing is going to be, but it's really important for the individual to decide, okay, I don't necessarily enjoy this, but I know that this is going to help me reach my goal, so I'm going to commit to doing this every day. And that's what they talk about, doing your hard thing every day. And then the point of, you know, from a parent standpoint, you know, my kids are still really young, 3 and 1. So we're not to the point of like signing up for, you know, T-ball or something like that yet, but it's okay. You've committed to doing this. You're going to stick with this until, you know, that season is over, or until all of your lessons are paid for, or whatever. So you know, as a parent, trying to instill, not only that grittiness of doing something hard, and choosing to do that, but also sticking with it, so that you learn to be able to, again, push through those times of difficulty, even when it's not fun. Well, you know what? You committed to doing it. You've got 8 lessons left. We're going to keep going. That kind of idea.
Yeah, it's. I think they should. You know, everybody gets that. What to expect when you're expecting. They should get a copy of Grit as well for parenting.
I totally agree.
Did you do now? Do you remember? I mean, she does a Grit score, so she gives you in the book like the grit scale, and everybody can do it. You know, she basically gives you different answers, whether, you know, that's very much like me, mostly like me, somewhat like me, not much like me, or not like me at all. And then she asks you questions, so you have to answer. Like, so one question is, new ideas and projects sometimes distract me, and you have to answer. And let's say you say somewhat, so she'll connect a score to that. I did it. And I got, out of 5, I got a 3.7, and which probably is about right for me. I can be gritty, but not, you know, again, super. It has to be something that I am like, oh, this is going to be awesome, and I'm really looking forward to this. Or I have to have some passion behind it, and really want to finish it, and I will overcome every obstacle to finish it. But there are things that I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, did you take the score? Do you remember what it was?
I did. I don't remember exactly. It was somewhere in that same ballpark, because I really thought that I was going to be high. Like, I thought I was going to be like a 4.8 out of 5. And I was like a 3.7, 3.6. And, but it's funny. I'm very much the same way. If it's something that I'm passionate about, I'm probably a 6.5 out of 5. Right. Yeah. But if it's not, it's kind of like, that's really pulling teeth to like stick with that, whatever that thing is. So I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was really useful. I read the book originally when it first came out. I think I pre-ordered it. And that summer, so it might have been last summer or the summer before, I printed the grit scale out, and I gave it to our team when we were here in the summer training. And had them do it. And we talked about it. It's nothing that we really went deep into, but I thought it was a fantastic idea. And she's got a great little kind of algorithm to it that makes a lot of sense, and it really gives you some insight as to sort of where you fall on this sort of this spectrum of grit. And I think it was really helpful. It was helpful for me to be able to reflect back and really, in those times when it's not something I'm passionate about but needs to get done, I kind of can think back to like, okay, I can score better than a 3.7, so I got to be a little grittier here. Yeah. And it's almost like motivation for myself.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I just listened to a book called Living with a SEAL. And it's this guy, Jesse Itzler, and he was a founder of like Marquis Jets, and he's like reinvented himself. He's he's a millionaire. Beyond that, he's married to the woman who invented Spanx. So she has, to whatever money he had, she has times 10. Crazy. And they're great people. They're very charitable. But he had a Navy SEAL live with him for 30 days and made him do like all the hard stuff, and he wanted to train. And Jesse was already a guy who was like running 100-mile races. Anyway, I saw an interview. The guy's name is I forget his first name right now, but his last name is Goggins. He's been on a bunch of podcasts and everything. And the best summary that he just likes to say is, just do something that sucks every day, Yeah. And so sometimes I do approach things and I'm like, oh, that would suck right now. I live on the 25th floor of my apartment building, and I'm like, you know what? It's going to suck right now to walk up this. So now that doesn't suck as much. So now I'm like, all right, every 5 floors, I'm going to do 10 push-ups or, something to make it suck a little bit more. But it's interesting how that's kind of changed me. Is there anything else that's kind of like you've kind of changed where, from reading it?
Yeah, I don't think it's changed me a lot. I think that I've been very fortunate. I think that this idea, this general premise is sort of how I was raised. Take the hard road sometimes, take the harder approach. Don't always take a shortcut. So it's kind of in me, but I think the book has really made me be more conscious about teaching and emphasizing this both to my own kids and to our athletes. The idea, again, really the ability to teach this. And I think it's as much just people not realizing that this can actually be grittier. You can kind of decide to do the hard thing and understand that in the long run is actually going to be beneficial. So in that way, it's changed me from the standpoint of realizing that this is something that I can teach, I can impress upon, the young people that I get to work with every day and my own kids. And it is honestly that pops up in my head the same way you talked about taking the stairs. I got in early to work today and I said, you know what? I'm going to get on the bike and ride a couple miles on the assault bike. And at night, I'm going to try to not have my 4th IPA tonight. That's gritty for me. That's going to be my hard thing tonight is to not have the extra IPA. So it's something that honestly is, I do think about on a regular occasion. So the book has really impressed me in that way.
Yeah, you gotta suck it up.
Yeah.
But definitely a great read. I actually listened to it, and Angela, she did the reading. I tried to get her on the Strength Coach podcast, but they turned me down. And then I was like, they probably turn you down once to see how gritty you are if you're going to email them again. So I'll probably email her one more time and be like, all right, I know you turned me down once, but I'm coming back at you because I'm gritty.
That's a great idea. I love it.
So, Dev, thanks so much for coming on and talking about grit. Like I said, I was glad that you picked this topic because I wanted to find out from the men that you're training how you felt, if you could change their lives through this and some things that you could do. So appreciate you coming on and talking about grit.
Thanks a lot for having me, man. A lot of fun.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 3 of Tell Me About That Book. Remember, go to tellmeaboutthatbook.com to get the link for the readitfor.me book summary of today's book. Thanks to Devan McConnell for coming on and sharing his thoughts and discussing grit. Any money made with sponsorships of this podcast will go directly to inner city weightlifting. You can find out more at tellmeaboutthatbook.com. My name's Anthony Renda. Thanks so much, and I'll speak to you next time.